Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
Come on, let me hear it.
Come on, Douglas. Come on.
I'm ready. Go.
Come on, Cletus. Come on.
What you eating? What you eating, Doug? I want to know.
Nothing. Mind your fucking business.
All the people that hate on us fatties on the show want to know what you're eating.
I'm eating fucking steak. Delicious pan-seared steak.
For the carnivore diet, because that's what we need.
No.
No, that's right. You weren't allowed to do that anymore. Or you chose not to, right?
Well, one, I chose not to. But two, Megan said, Douglas.
And
I say, yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway,
Thank you,
fuck all that. Guess what came today?
Oh,
the burn box.
good.
I'm wearing my shirt. I got the burn box on my shirt.
I also had
FDIC
some corn.
That's nice. Well, it's episode 109. We got a special guest.
I think.
No, it's 109.
No, it's not. Doug, you're all...
The calendar said 108.
It says 109.
How's everybody doing tonight? I talked to
109.
I talked to Freddie earlier. He tried to fix his Wi-Fi. He ended up resetting his neighbor's sprinklers, so he's working on that project right now.
Why are you yelling at me?
You've been yelling the whole time.
You sound like Jesus. Fat Jesus. What's up, Fat Jesus?
109.
It's diabetes,
109.
Jesus.
Okay, cool. We're off the fucking rails and we ain't even started.
I know. I know.
Oh, we have started.
And our guest is probably going, what have I got myself into?
I hope you don't mind me saying the F word because I'm loaded up with him tonight.
Yeah,
I know him,
Doug's
and the answer to that is no, he does not. I know
It's
him
about
well.
to get worse.
Oh, God, there's the liquor bottle. Okay, so we're going to get to our guest here in just a second. But real quick, housekeeping, we got to do that. Doug already brought out the burn box. It's June box. So check your mailbox. And if you haven't ordered it, there's still time for you to subscribe or order your June burn box. We're not going to go into what's in it. We'll save that for next week.
I'll give you a hint.
It is special. Go ahead, Doug. Give us a hint. I was going to say, I'm sure you have a teaser.
I think there's steak in there.
There's no steak in there. I wish there was. Tom and I have had that discussion. Let's put some Omahas in that jank, right? But anyway, all you scuba scammers and puddle pirates will thoroughly enjoy this month.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I love your analogies. Those are fantastic.
Puddle pirates, man.
It's a nice.
That's what I call my.
And it's nice.
That's what I call my scuba team anyway. The recovery team. They don't rescue shit. They just find dead people.
There's a nice discount code in there, isn't there? Also,
you're damn right there is.
All right.
So while we're talking about Tom, don't forget the FD Collectors Club. Great in-depth review last week. I wasn't on last week's episode, but they talked about the coins. So make sure that you're also subscribing to that if you love anything patches and coins as well. While we're also talking about our sponsors, the man, the myth, the legend, the award-winning Unky Seasonings, unkyseasoning.com. Our boy.
That's me. Hi.
That is Adam.
Hey, Father's Day's right around the corner, fellas. We got a little mini samples still left. We're on sell.
I was going to ask you, what's the Father's Day code?
Dad 25.
Dad 25.
25%?
No.
Discounting big
As
time.
in 2025.
Oh,
That's pretty deceiving.
I'll take the tax off. It's fucking tight, wad.
Hey, and as promised,
tell people it was on my steak tonight.
Okay. So you have,
But I'll tell you,
and
it's nothing better on a ribeye than that Buddy Rosemary. It's perfect.
with the Elizabeth salt.
I don't have it anymore. I need to order. I'll order using code DAD25.
There you go. And I was going to say, off. Adam is known to throw random things in the box, just so you know, on your order.
Sometimes.
So don't be surprised if you don't get random things in your box. It could be an old gum wrapper. It could be old gum. I mean, whatever. But,
I just cleaned out my junk drawer, too. So
might be a Taylor's tin mug. You never know.
Could be. So you won't get those random things unless
or
you
a small
order.
fire hydrant to pee on if you like doing those kind of things.
I hear that.
Or maybe you'll get one of his reusable solos because this thing's dope.
Thank you.
Dude, you got more props than Carrot Top.
Hey.
What can I say, man? I promote my people. I got a Braves tomahawk back there now.
Let's go.
I got my beer bats.
I got a beer bat
from the 2021 World Series.
What the heck? You got a beer bat on you?
I have 4 actually.
I got a beer bat.
I have 4
all right there at their disposals.
I was really in the beers in the 2021 World Series.
I have. It looks like it. Well, let's do this. Before we get into our moment of silence, I want to introduce our special guest tonight. He is a longtime friend of mine, at least 10 to 15 years. His name is Mr. Deral Raynor. He is a ratings inspector for the Office of State Fire Marshal. I want him to give his introduction, but he probably won't mention this part of it. So I want to mention this because it ties in perfectly with our moment of silence. For close to 20 years, Deral Raynor has been a family escort for line of duty deaths here in North Carolina, as well as Emmitsburg, Maryland. So he holds a special place in our moment of silence, but also a special place for me and him because, again, when I first come into the fire marshal's office, probably within 3 to 5 years at the county level, he became our ratings and inspections inspector for our area. And we got to know each other. We spent a lot of hours together in the truck going around doing inspections, as well as just doing inspections, full-blown inspections. And so I got to know him and I got to know the person that he is. And I wouldn't have asked him on the show if I didn't know that he wasn't credible and a very, very great guy. So, Deral, why don't you kind of introduce yourself, talk about the fire service and got you into what job you're in, and then we're going to talk about, after our moment of silence, we'll talk about why you're on the show tonight.
Deral Raynor. Live here in Deep Run, southern Lenoir County, which is in North Carolina. Started my fire service career probably 1986, 87 as a junior in North Lenoir Fire Department. Worked my way through the ranks there. It was a fairly large fire department. I became chief in 2000. Probably had close to 50 members, all volunteer. Everything in our county is still all volunteer except one municipal department, which is paid, which is the city of Kinston. I didn't go to the paid service when I got out of high school and stuff here because they weren't paying but about $14,700 a year. Our local department just got to 40,000 within the last 24 months. Tell you how kind of far behind Eastern North Carolina is, the majority in rural Eastern North Carolina. We're very rural. Did a number of things, stayed in the volunteer service, did a lot of training, National Fire Academy, different places all over our state. Ended up in 2004. Had the opportunity to become our county fire marshal and really enjoyed that. And then in like 2007, 8, long in there, that's when I got involved with line of duty death stuff, as Brian was talking about, especially at the national level. This was my 19th year at Emmitsburg, back the first weekend in May, to being a family escort. Did that several years, got to know the state inspectors good. One of the inspectors passed away. We were really good friends. We hunted together. The boss asked me, did I want his job? And at the time I said no. We were really good friends, and I just didn't feel right doing it. And it wasn't 4 months later, another one came open and I took it. And I've been with the state ever since. I've been deployed to every hurricane. I've been deployed to every national disaster in this state since 96. Just came back from some wildfires that we had in the western. I was at Helene, up in the Gearing Creek community for 14 days back then. They lost 13 head in that community. 11 of them were relatives. That one probably hit me the hardest. I'm also the last team leader for our state, which is our local assistant. We assist all fire departments with line of duty deaths, and I help them with their paperwork, stuff like that. And that's kind of how I got in. Now I moved to the southern end of the county 20. See, my kids will be 20 this year, so 21 years ago. I moved to the southern end of our county. I'm assistant chief here at Deep Run, and also vice president of the board of directors. And so I'm still Still pretty active in the fire service, but my days are getting short. But I love it. It's a passion of mine, especially the line of duty death side. As Brian said, I've been doing it a long time, and I just feel like if we can't get that part right, then we ain't got no business doing anything else in our state. And it keeps going up. I mean, we just honored 170 first weekend in May, so that's a passion of mine is line of duty deaths. But I'll end it there, Brian, and let you go ahead so we can talk about more important things besides me.
Oh, that's okay. And I thank you for that. I thank you. I don't jokingly say thank you for your service, but I do say thank you for filling that gap in the escorts, because I know I've seen it and we've talked about it in the roles that you do and how you stand by that family. If they need towels at 11 o'clock because they don't have enough, you're that guy that weekend. You go get them towels. And whatever it is that they need, you fill the gap. And so I appreciate that on behalf of the fire service. So with that being said, I don't know if anybody wants to recognize any line of duty deaths that they know about this week, but if not, we'll take this 5 to 10 in honor of anyone that we may have lost. All right.
Well said.
Well said. All right. So, Deral, one day at lunch, we got to talking, and I was in the process of my bachelor's degree. It may have been my associate's at that time. I don't remember if I had transferred or not. But we got to talking, and he started talking about this incident that happened in Lenoir County. It was the West Pharmaceutical plant explosion. And at that time in my career, I had been on, at that point, my paid department for about a year. And I'll never forget, we were on duty that day, and we were training earlier in the morning. And for whatever reason, the news came on and it interrupted the news, and we never left the station again that day. And we had a rule that after lunch, the TV goes off at 1 o'clock. And even if it was just busy training around the station, y'all know what I'm talking about. Maps, familiarization, essentials manuals get open, whatever, right? You are doing some type of training for the sake of looking busy. But the news media was live streaming this large scale, massive industrial fire in Lenoir County. And I can remember seeing aerial trucks and master streams flowing and all of these things that were happening. And so fast forward to being in my degree program, I had been asked to write about significant events across our state. And I had wrote several times about the West Pharmaceutical plant explosion. And so as Deral began to explain these things over those lunches, I realized that he knew what he was talking about. He knew all this background. And so I asked him, I said, Deral, how do you know about this? And he said, oh, I was the instant commander of that. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And I mean, like, he's just eating his French fries like it's nothing. He was like, yeah, I was the IC of that. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, all these people died. And it lasted for several days. He's like, yep. And I was like, all these federal agencies responded. And he's like, yep. Hey, can I get some more tea? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, so every time we would get together, I would have thought of more questions to ask. So in Daryl's introduction, he talked about how rural Lenoir County is, but the reality and the totality of it is the risk that's in that community. So I kind of want Deral, I want you to set the stage of what it was like that day, kind of not the overall what happened. We'll dive into each one of those, but, paint the picture of what West Pharmaceuticals was, what your day was that day, what you were doing, and then kind of what set up the stage for that day.
Yeah, it was January 29th of 2003. Another normal, brisk North Carolina January day. Little cloudy, overcast, nothing major. West Pharmaceuticals, I mean, people hear pharmaceuticals, they do not make pharmaceuticals. It's about, the old plant was probably 150, 200,000 square feet facility. They actually manufacture the rubber plunger that goes in syringes. And during that process, the rubber and stuff, they take polyethylene powder and water and mix it and put it on the rubber so it won't stick, and then it's blow dried. And that's where the dust comes from, the polyethylene dust. We knew what the plant did. Took many tours of it, with my volunteer department while I was chief and assistant chief. But just a normal day, I was probably about 15 miles from the plant when the call came in. I think it was 1:29 in the afternoon, 1:27, along there in the afternoon when the call came in. And the first call that we got, because the old plant where it used to sit right adjacent to our airport, less than 100 yards from runway. And the first call that came in was actually from an officer of another volunteer fire department that worked at the plant. And he called on his portable radio that he thought a plane had crashed into the plant. And that was the initial call that went out that day. And then it was on from there.
I was going to say, so where were you at? What were you doing? And what did the initial response look like based off of that? And then take me through the arrival.
Yeah, I was actually in a neighboring county over in Greene County, just getting off work. And I left, of course, and came on. And when it came out, I mean, they dispatched us, Hugo, which is another volunteer fire department, and the city of Kinston, which is a paid department, the only paid department in our county. And my assistant chief actually arrived first. And when he got there, he gave a pretty good size up and just told them to dispatch everybody in our county and tell them to stay off the radio. And then I came up shortly after, and we kind of made a makeshift plan, me and the chief of the city and my assistant chief, and went from there. I don't know if you've ever seen any pictures. They had a 2-story section that was, I mean, it looked like a bomb had blown. I mean, we actually had woods fires started 2 miles from the scene from insulation and debris. It blew the windows out of a school that was about a half a mile away. I think the blast was heard up to 23 miles. We had a pretty good response. I mean, my first arriving engine, I had a guy that had just been released as engineer, brand new kid, coming in on the first arriving engine, and he was kind of shell shocked because he went to hook to the sprinkler system, was nothing worked. I mean, all the sprinkler pipes were in the floor.
They were gone.
Yeah. I think we ended up. I think there were 6 dead, 36 were injured, and I ended up having 2 firemen get injured. Nothing serious, thank goodness. And I was there 6 straight days.
I was going to say, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the triage, the demand for resources. Now, you talked about this. You're a volunteer fire department. You've got your initial on first alarm is a second volunteer and a paid department. What does that look like when you first get there? When you said you put a game plan together, you told me, at one of our lunchtime meetings, when it was all said and done, you had a 5-inch binder as your incident report, right? Like that's how detailed you had to be after 6 days.
That incident report was 82 pages. But I mean, you're looking at initial, pretty much the city come to us with 2 or 3 engines and a ladder. And then Hugo came with a couple of engines and a ladder. And then we rolled 3 engines and like a heavy rescue. There was only 2 accessible hydrants to that plant that we laid from. The shortest lay was 1,700 feet. And that was all the water we had unless we were going to do drop tanks. We had 1 ladder, that brand new ladder, first fire it ever flowed. It flowed 750,000 gallons on that fire. Probably the biggest thing for us, I think, was the amount of people. With us being volunteer, we have paid EMS, paramedic service, but it is, small. for the county. We run like 6 trucks countywide. But just the amount of people when you were pulling up that were burnt, injured. I think we ended up landing 9 helicopters on the grounds. So it was pretty much organized chaos for the first few hours. Just trying to get things under control. Had a retired chief. He's retired now from the city of Kinston, Greg Smith. That was super to work with. He became an operations officer, and we pretty much we ran it together for 6 days. And but the amount of people that were injured, the actual first 2 people that were on the scene were 2 PD officers with the Kinston City Police. And they found one of the victims who was deceased. They found her and actually talked to her. And they stayed as long as they could till their uniforms started burning, and they had to leave her. They couldn't get a beam off of her. So, I mean, it was pretty traumatic for our area. I mean, we're very, like I said, small community. You're looking county about 60,000, city about 18,000. So very small, rural. We had trucks come in as far from Goldsboro and Wayne County to assist. Ladder trucks.
And geographically, for those that are listening, how far is that by road miles? Like when you think about that,
you're looking at New Hope. They brought a ladder, and the city of Goldsboro brought a ladder. You're probably looking 25 miles, 30 miles for them to get there.
Yeah. So we're I was gonna say we're getting resources 30 miles away. And that's the kind of the twofold question that I want to talk about. This is 2 years post 9/11, right? So
correct.
The federal government hasn't instituted, they've instituted ICS training, and we got the dose in the arm, right? By then, the 1, 2, 7, and 8. But we really haven't instituted like the 300 and the 400, the planning P and 6 days of operational period. We don't know that by this time, right? Like we have a basic understanding. We don't have that. So let's take a bigger look into this. You and I have talked about this, but I want our listeners to know about it. What did that teamwork look like? You talked about it. This other fire chief, operations chief, the blue card, all these other things that are now second nature to us 20 years later, really wasn't a thing back then. You guys, little did we know, people like you were the real world application of a one-off, right? Whether it's in California or whatever, you were showing people that things like that were working in big cities could work in rural America, right? On that event that would never happen. You guys were doing it, right? And whether you knew you were doing it at that moment, you were doing it. So kind of take me through what that looks like. Here's a department in 2 counties over that has to come and work with someone that they've never worked with before. How do you make it work? How did you make it work over those 6 days?
It was tough. And we set everything up, operations, staging officers, water supply officers. We had pretty much our bases covered. It was tough. We had to do a lot of face-to-face because then at that time that was, and I don't know how many folks have ever had to deal with an incident of that size, but it went national. So we had the parking lot.
Big clue, Deral. Nobody's done something like that. You're the rare group, right?
But we had a parking lot at the airport that was full of news media. And I'm talking about everything, CNN, anybody you could think of. And what they would do, they would come in and they would dial back to their home office, whether it was in New York, wherever it was at, and then leave that cell phone on. It was open. So at the time, all our cell service was locked. It was down. You couldn't contact anybody unless you were using a sat phone. Of course, with a lot of the out-of-county departments back then, we didn't have interoperability. Nobody had to and still to this day, we operate on an 800 and Wayne County runs 700. So unless you're patched through, it's hard to talk. We did a lot of face-to-face, had a lot of good chiefs here in our county and from other counties that came in and took roles to help support the incident. Had a really good emergency management director at the time, Roger Dale. which I know Brian knows. He was here, and Kim Pate was the fire marshal at the time. They were a big help because at the time we roped off an area for our command post for the first hour. I mean, we're standing in a yard with it roped off until they could get our bus there and get us hard lined in so we'd have phones and radios and stuff to talk on. So it was challenging to say the least. Probably the biggest challenge for me as an incident commander is we did not know how many folks were in that plant. The plant employed about 255 people. Come to find out at the actual time of the explosion with lunchtime people off and this, that, and other, there's about 135 head there that day. But what we had to do is and once the explosion happened, people walked out of the building, got in their cars, and left. I mean, it was really unbelievable. I mean, they were just in shock. So we actually had to take every line supervisor, sit them on the tailgate of a truck, and then they had to go by memory and write down who was clocked in that day. And then we had to send law enforcement to people's houses to verify who we have missing, who's here. I mean, we're still searching for victims. There was a construction crew there that didn't have to clock in, that nobody knew how many was on the crew, who was there. So that was the most difficult thing to me, was trying to get a handle on how many people were there, because we had family coming. It hadn't been long before we had put together like a family crisis plan. And so we designated a nearby church as a family center. That's where the families went to get all information, trying to keep them out of the scene. And I know we'll get into it. And if you've never had an incident like this, and I've talked about this incident all over the country, you can take your legal pad and write down the alphabet. And when you have something like this, somebody representing every one of those letters is coming to visit you. There's agencies and stuff that I didn't even know our country had that came and visited and wanted to play a role in the investigation. And I think the smartest thing that we did, we had a really good working relationship with the ATF and our SBI. And when they got there, we went on and declared it a crime scene until proven otherwise, because it locked everybody out. Because we had people suiting up, we're going to go in the building, and hell, we hadn't even placed it under control. So we did that, locked it down. The national response team from the ATF was in the next day with 30 head. They flew in 30 people, explosive experts from all over the country. So it was a big response, and it was hard to manage. I did try to go home one time out of those 6 days, and I just finished eating supper at home, and I got a call. I had a fireman go down, so I went back and I said, I'm not leaving again until it's over, and I didn't. So, but I had a lot of good support, a lot of good chief officers, and a lot of good firemen that I could lean on, and it all comes back to training. I mean, you train like you play, so that's the way I feel about it. And that's what it came down to. And I think that's the reason we didn't have more hurt or fatally injured, was because of our training.
I want to go to several of those things that you mentioned, because I think it's so vital. You talked about the police officers who tried to rescue people. There was video. I'll never forget it. It replays in my brain. The maintenance worker who was on the scaffolding on the second floor and had been trapped up there for over an hour, and he had the 2nd-degree burns. What was his name? Joe's. A very common name.
Yeah, I still see him, and I knew his daddy. His daddy's name was Red, and I hate that I can't think of his name. And the only reason that we ever saw him was because the wind shifted. And when the wind shifted, he had a flashlight, and he was waving it, and he was just standing on a beam. He was burnt bad enough. I know when we flew him to Chapel Hill, they told his parents that, they could go on in and say their goodbyes. But he ended up living. He's very positive. He's blind now because of it. Had a lot of 3rd-degree burns. Super nice gentleman. Very positive, upbeat. Still goes out and speaks in our community. But yeah, he was it was over an hour before we ever knew he was standing on a beam, because the floors, everything around him was gone. And how he wound up on that beam, I'll still never know.
That was it. And that instant of itself, right? Like when you think about into a duration of an event and you're still doing those types of rescues, right? On an explosion, mind you, an hour long into that incident. I heard him come speak probably 2007, 2009.
His name's Jim.
Jim.
Yeah.
Yep, Jim.
I can't think of his last
name. So
he
came and he married up with the North Carolina Department of Labor. North Carolina is its own OSHA state, so where OSHA will come in and do workplace inspections. North Carolina is mandated by its own branch of it, so we have our own mandates. And so he decided that after that God had a greater purpose for the tragedy in his life, and so he would literally go around and do these speeches and talk about what happened to him. And he told the story, and I'm telling you, there was not many dry eyes in there. And he talked about how being in the burn center and how he was okay to die. Like he was like, in fact, he wanted to die because of what experiences he had in there. And so, you hear about these incidences and you hear about what those PD officers were doing, trying to rescue those victims and all of these things, and how we talk about it. In fact, Doug talked about it, how we've regulated so much on the compliancy side of this, right? We almost get back to the point of saying, oh, this won't happen to us. But y'all, this was dust buildup as a result of a latex on a fan in a plant, right? Just because it had a buildup, and it was secondary explosions. It's fully sprinkled building. They pre-planned the crap out of it, right? In rural America. And that's the reason why I wanted to have Deral on so much, because we get so complacent thinking that these types of things won't happen because we've overregulated, right? And I can't stress that enough. Everybody who went to work that day thought they were going home, right? And Deral, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm assuming that they had planned for it thinking they were never going to need it, right? And he goes and does inspections all the time at departments and gives grades on fire departments for the worst case scenarios that insurance companies use to write premiums based off of that. But nonetheless, we should be planning to respond for those types of incidences in our communities. So that's wild. So Deral, I gave you kind of a chance to catch your breath there, but I want to go back to one of the items that you were talking about in there. And you talked about the duration that you were there. Mm-hmm. Looking back on it now, do you think 6 days straight was smart? I know you said you went, and we've talked about this several times. I want you to give. Okay, so how, looking back 20 years later, what would you have done different in that command role? Right, there's a lot of rural volunteer fire chiefs or volunteer officers that are listening right now. Looking back, that was the me strong thing to do. But what would you have done different?
I guess in our rural community here, we're kind of fortunate. We know all the chiefs, all the assistant chiefs, especially your neighboring departments. We train together, we run together all the time. Back then, I wish, if it was today, there's no way I could do it. And I know the training and the qualifications of most folks here around me, and I would have give it off. I'd have, after so many hours, I'd have said, it's yours. And I'd have went home, caught my breath, rested, came back. And I think anybody, but in the heat of the battle, we were there. I did try to leave. I don't know, maybe it was day 2 or 3. I can't remember. And I had one of the firemen with the city of Kinston went down inside the plant, and I came back. And I just made the decision that I wasn't going to leave and until it was over. Do I think that was smart? Absolutely not. Because I think sometimes when you get tired, you make some knee-jerk decisions, and And I know as far as me, I said some things probably to some people. I mean, especially one gentleman. I won't say what I said, but
no. You're going to tell the story. I'm going to get you to tell that story. So
I can't take it.
You're going to have to tell it here in a minute.
I'll tell it in a minute. And we talked after. Thank goodness that once it was over, we did talk, because now he's passed on, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk and clear the air on that deal. I mean, and he had nothing to do with the fire service. So, but you say some things, do some things, I think, when you're tired and you're emotional. And I wish I'd have given it off and let somebody else run it for a while.
20 years later to this incident, or better than 20 years, how did that incident shape you to what you are today?
I really think that it made us train even more. And we started looking, and which now, and and with our rating process here in North Carolina, since we do our own as part of community risk, there's actually a question, and it looks in wanting to know what percentage of your high risk occupancies do you actually go and visit and pre-plan for and stuff. That's the biggest thing with me was training. After it was over, going back, I was thankful that we did what we did. The chief prior to me, and two chiefs prior to me, was really big in training and let us go anywhere in the country we wanted to go to train on any topics that we wanted to train on. And I think that lit a fire in me, and I guess that's the reason I went to the fire academy so much and did so much training. That, I mean, you can't be prepared for something like that if it's in your area and you don't train for it. And that's what it goes back to. And I think you see it a lot. I mean, especially in today's world where they don't even want us to burn an acquired structure. I mean, I see it all the time. I see kids now that are getting in the fire service that's been on a paid department here in North Carolina for 2 years and has never seen a structure fire just because of the way his shift falls. So when that time comes, I mean, he's got to have, I mean, if he didn't have good training, you're going to know quick. Right. So I just think training,
you're setting them up for failure, right?
That's right. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me go back to that lighter note, right? I want you to tell the story. So on the lighter note, tell the story about that early morning perimeter break that you had.
Yeah, the sun had just came up, and like I said, we had some 5-inch laid. I don't know, maybe this was day 3, 2, 3, 4, I don't know. And I'm sitting in our command bus. Sun had just came up. Me and the county fire marshal sitting there kind of going over what our plans were for today. And I look down and I see a van pull up to a deputy. The deputy gets out of his car, walks up there, talks to the driver. He goes back, gets in his deputy car, and here comes the van around. Bloop, 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 runs right over our 5-inch, comes around the curve, runs over the next section of 5-inch. Well, our fire marshal at the time, he said, I'll handle this. I said, hell no, you're not going to handle it. I said, I'm tired of it. So I bust out of the command bus, and I go up there, and I grab the driver's side door, and I put a cussing on this poor fella. I mean, I cussed him. And I went to catch my breath, and I stepped back, and on the side of the van, it had Baptist Men's Relief Group. And he was the preacher.
They were bringing him breakfast, y'all.
And he was bringing us breakfast that his congregation had cooked for us. And so I told him, I said,
people had got up at 3 o'clock making biscuits.
Yeah, I said, I apologize, and I'm pretty sure I've signed my ticket to hell. And he said, no, I'm going to pray for you. You're going to be all right. And I said, I appreciate it. I'm going to need it. So, I mean, I've got a 50-50 chance now. No, learn my lesson. I kind of look now before I say anything.
But I find that so funny because it speaks to exactly what you said. You were exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You're worn out.
The same way. I don't know if I ever told you about the federal EPA. And I really lit into one of these guys. But the federal EPA got on scene, and they came up and they said, they wanted to see fit testing for every fireman that was on the scene. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? We're in the middle of fighting a fire. So we had, I don't know how many volunteer departments were there. And I'm like, so we actually had DuPont, which was a plant here. They came and set up a circus tent. It's pretty much what it looked like. And we had a guy out there run fit tests on everybody that couldn't produce a paper fit test from their department because the EPA was going to shut us down.
In the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
In the heat of the moment.
Well, we had OSHA was going to shut down a ladder truck because the guy running the pump wasn't in full turnout gear. Oh, I got so many stories.
If they shut y'all down, what are they going to replace y'all with?
They told him to put on his gear or shut the truck down.
I mean, it's like, safety is everybody responsible. But like, yeah, put it on. But like the fit testing, like I understand that it's a requirement and stuff like that. But we're busy, and if you shut us down, who's going to replace us? We're going to lose control.
There was nobody left to replace
us.
I mean, we were it.
I was going to say, I guess in their mind, the dead people in the building can't get any deader, right? And that in their mind, they're like, well, we have to minimize our risk. But at the same time, go tell that to the family who doesn't have their family, right? Like, we have to, that incident has not been stabilized.
Like you said, it was starting fires down the street and stuff. So,
right. You got to put it out.
We were out of fire departments. We had to call in forestry just to handle the small woods fires and stuff because we didn't have any trucks to send them. And North Carolina Forestry
got Laguna Beach responding.
We would have come.
So Deral, let me kind of wrap my head around this. How did your department? I know you talked about what happened as a result of this and how it shaped you. What did that post incident look like? Critical incident stress debriefing was not a thing, right? At that point,
how did we actually had
deal
one
with that?
We actually had critical incident debriefing. We did, and looking, I mean, I think we lost some people. We also gained a few people from the community that saw what was going on. And the guys really saw the need for training and what we were doing. I mean, now you got to look on 2 engines. We lost every bit of hose, every ladder. They wouldn't let us bring them back out of the building. Just unhook and leave. We lost 40 sets of gear. They actually took some of our gear that polyethylene stuff was on, and when they washed our gear, when the gear come back, you could pull the gear apart. It would split. I will say Morning Pride, I'll give them a shout out. They stopped production and put us at the front of the line, and we have 40 sets of gear in 2 weeks. So a lot of companies did step up. Some local companies here in North Carolina that got us equipment back within several days. But it was tough on a lot of people. We had a lot of people that really had never seen anything like that. I mean, of course, I'd never seen, as far as manufacturing facility, anything like that. Actually, the week before that, we probably had the largest residential fire we'd ever had in our county that most of the departments went to. It was like 12,000 square feet. Had burnt the week before. So I think it hurt some people for some of the things they saw, some of the things they had to do, and situations they got put in that they weren't prepared for. Especially, and I preach this a lot when I go around and talk on the volunteer side. I mean, you're getting a lot of kids in the service today that, I mean, it was different. I mean, everybody in my family was law enforcement. So, of course I had to go fire so somebody would work in our family. But I was exposed to a lot of stuff growing up, and then, working on a farm and doing this and doing just like my kids. There's a lot of kids today that aren't exposed to anything. And I think if something like that in our county happens today, it'll be worse than it was 20 years ago. Not that they're less prepared as far as fighting the fire or training, but just the emotional stuff that you have to go through. I don't think they're as prepared as firemen were 20 years ago.
because of the new generation? Is that why you're saying?
I think so. I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, and I can't speak for everywhere. I'm just speaking for right here in rural North Carolina. I mean, on my local department here, you can see there's a big difference in an 18-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid from now than it was in 1991, 2003. There's a big difference in work ethic and everything that these kids do, and we're seeing it all across our state. With nobody wanting to volunteer anymore, it's like they don't care about their community, no pride in their communities. And you're seeing, I know where Brian lives over in Onslow, one of our neighboring counties. I mean, now they have paid staff in every volunteer department. I mean, it's going to that, and it's going to keep going because the volunteerism is way down, and young folks just don't want to do it. It's about, what are you going to do for them? You're going to pay me. You're going to give me this. Well, yeah, I'm going to pay you. I'm going to give you a set of turnout gear, send you to training.
Yeah.
And then people are always saying,
I can see that.
Well, in our area, people, and Brian knows it as good as I do, going around in our area, it's always, well, you can't tell they're volunteers. Well, my saying, and Brian will tell you, is the only thing you volunteer to do is stop at the station and fill out the application. After that, it's a damn job. And I don't care whether they're paying you a check or not. It's a job, and that's the way the volunteer fire service has to look at it. And when these young folks start looking at it that way, I think you'll see it improve.
One thing,
go ahead,
Brian, if I could interject a little bit. One thing I thought about, Chief, was you're talking about the new generation, and you're talking to a fairly new captain here. I've only been on as a captain for a little over a year, and one of the things that I do is I'll stress about things that'll keep me up at night, like, what if this happens? What if this happens? And I've brought that up to several people, and including, mental health therapists, people that our mental health awareness is stronger than it's ever been, which is a great thing. But they're also telling us firefighters, like, hey, you can't stress about things that might not happen. And that's, I feel like, kind of correlates exactly what you're talking about. You said, and what I've picked up from one of the major things that, you've taken from that whole incident was the amount of training that you guys have done. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, I'm worried about those, because we have large, manufacturing, like food processing plant in Laguna. And what if that has a bunch of refrigerant? I'm like, that's a massive fire for us. I mean, it's not 150 to 200,000 square foot structure, but it's still like something that I worry about. Whereas maybe guys in my same shoes don't necessarily feel that way, or they don't stress about it as much as I don't know. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but that could be, kind of attributed to what you're saying with this new generation of just like, well, it's not going to happen to me, and then bam, I sat through an awesome conference class for a few hours. This guy came out and talked about the Sofa Superstore fire, the 9 that died in Charleston. It was an amazing. Now that was, I can't remember the year it was, but it was way back. But the different things that they had pulled from that, and it can happen. I mean, look at your target hazards. One of the things we do in my fire department now is each captain. We have 12 captains, so each one takes a month, and we do a target hazard training, and all 3 shifts will walk through the target hazard. We have tons of hotels, grocery stores, big, like apartment complexes. And we talk about FDCs and hydrants and what type of building construction it is. And we'll walk through it and talk tactics. It's awesome. I love it. It's really good. But one question that I have, and there might not be an answer to it. I know it was such a, crazy complex incident that you had to run, but was there maybe one or more things that had happened during the fire that kind of that changed, like something that you can say, like specifically, like, oh, this happened during those 6 days, and I never stopped thinking about it, so this changed, whether it was like policies or guidelines or legislation even. Was there anything that came out of that fire?
Yes, sir. There was a lot of legislation came out of this fire that went into our code with dust explosions. One of the biggest thing is we partnered. The manufacturing that we do have here, pretty much all over Eastern North Carolina, usually has sister companies. And West also had sister companies. So we actually met with their CEO. We met with other companies here, and our county did a thing now. So they had swipe card system where you come in, you kind of swipe in at West. But okay, once the explosion happened, there's nothing. So we have it now. When they swipe in, it sends everything to a sister company. So that way, heaven forbid, if something else happens, I can get a printout of who's there that day. As far as the fire department training, I really don't think so. Nothing that I saw, or that we did. I don't think. Probably getting back to I think, as far as the mental health issue, I think now we would help some of those folks a little more than we did back then. But I also go back to you, and we have captains same way on the department I'm on now, that nothing worries them, nothing bothers them. They don't think about anything. Well, I equate that to the same thing as law enforcement. If they're thinking nothing's ever going to happen, it's that one person that's going to shoot and kill them at a traffic stop. And that's all it takes is one fire. And it doesn't even have to be, a target hazard place. It could be residential. If you're not planning and training for those incidents, you're going to get caught with your gear down.
I want to interject. I know that you asked him that question, but it was because of his incidents so close to home that it caused us to look at things differently. Mm-hmm. Sure. Right? Yeah. It's one of those things that we're like, oh crap, that was right there. That we were like, that can happen to us. And you mentioned the Charleston sofa. We had a fire just like that 1 year before. Mm-hmm. 1 year before. And so in our own community, we sat on that fire for 3 days. It was a furniture store fire. We were called back in. We had a surge back. And so anyways, I guess what I'm getting at is sometimes you don't know that your event causes change not related to you.
That's right.
But like to your point, the legislation, Daryl's 100% right. There was code legislation that happened in the prevention world, on the next code cycle. But then there was reactivity of training that occurred because they went through it. Right? Mm-hmm. They were too busy dealing with it to do the change, but all of us around it, it was like snap to, right? It's kind of like when you were in the back of the car and your brother or sister got yelled at, you shut up, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you were too busy. He was there getting their butt whipped, and so it caused you to have a change. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the outcome of what happened in Eastern North Carolina. At least they went through it, and it was like, whoa, we need to slow down and think about how this could be on us. What is the change? What is the policy change? What's the direction that happened? We think about things like 9/11 and wildfires, these big incidents, large scale, right? And this is large scale for him, right? National Response Team to ATF, but a lot of folks don't know it. But you can go and read the National Chemical Safety Board, I think is the name of that, who did a full report on it. It's out there. And they can share it. But it really makes you think about these, to your point, Matt, what happens about refrigerant, a place that uses flour or does sugar or wood, right? Someone who produces furniture. That same hazard is in most communities and you don't even know it, right? And it's literally, it can be in a very dense populated area or it can be in rural America, right? It does not matter. Combustible dust can be anywhere. Daryl, you were going to say something, and I kept going.
Yeah, and you think about just in our area, in Eastern North Carolina, and even in Western North Carolina, you look at a lot of the really target hazard places that are really volatile are protected by volunteers. So I encourage them. I mean, I go places and. I don't even know if the department's ever gone out there and did a walkthrough of the place. Much less, let me see your pre-plans. You get the deer in the headlight look. Yeah. And you got places, down on our coast, we have yacht building places. Everything you can think of is here in North Carolina. And we got a lot of departments that don't take it serious until something happens. And then it's too late.
Yeah. Normalization of deviance.
I love it. I love it. Adam, you've been kind of quiet tonight. You got anything to add? Or are you just soaking it all in, brother? I mean, that's your normal anyway.
Oh man, I'm always soaking it in. But yeah, it just made me think, like, in my area, outside all these Navy bases and Army bases that we got, like what other people have, we have distribution centers between grocery chains, Keurig, Walmart, all that stuff, even Amazon. We have several huge facilities that Amazon's putting up, and Walmart's trying to match one of them. So you got these huge facilities, Amazon's everywhere. You just think about it, it's like nothing but cardboard. You got to think about that. Nothing but cardboard and a bunch of people. It's just those things like that. You just got to really pay attention to the big ones and even the small buildings. But this is wild.
Well, Daryl, I know we've covered a lot. We went longer than normal, but that's okay. I think it was all relevant and pertinent information, and I got lost in time, so it's okay. I think
you're good.
Most of our listeners will. So I appreciate it. If you had one message to those communities that after they go and do their target, I think it would be training, right?
Absolutely.
Is that the message you want to give to them?
Train. That's.
I love it.
I mean, train. I mean, get out in your communities and find. I mean, I've got places don't even know, and you know as well as I do, just around Jacksonville, where Brian lives, how many businesses changed and the fire department doesn't know it because they're not out actually doing pre-plans. And so you don't know what's in that building. So get out, take the time, train, find out where they're at, what you're going to do. You're talking about Amazon, just right up the road in a neighboring county. We had 1 million square foot Amazon facility burn here. So, I mean, yeah, we're familiar with some big fires. So, I mean,
get out yourself and see it. Don't contract it out and let other people do
that's right.
Oh, come on now. I was looking for a side hustle gig over there.
Yeah.
And some departments like contract out their pre-fire plans, and they don't do them themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, but train, that's my biggest
You looking for me to respond to that?
Yeah.
Daryl, I'm going to send you the link to that video where Matt and I got into it about pre-planning, but that's for another day.
I sit around and just poke the bear. Speaking of the bear, you got a Ronnie Hayes story that you can share?
Daryl or me?
Daryl. We hear stories all the day. Do you know Chief Hayes, right? Ronnie Hayes?
I do.
You got anything? Do you know a funny story about him? He's a friend of ours.
Nothing that the statutes of limitations hadn't run out on.
Okay, looking forward to it. I love a good Ronnie story. One, him telling the stories, and the story about him. Love it.
Oh my gosh,
I love you, Ronnie.
He will love to hear that on Friday. I have no doubt. He listens every Friday on his drive into work, and he will love hearing that. I want to give a shout out to Vernon Ward. He hit me up at Midwinters. That's Daryl's supervisor, and he came up to me and he was a retired fire chief who basically reviews all the packets across the state. And he said, "I didn't know you were on a podcast. They were over here telling me you were on a podcast," and we got to talking about it. And so, what I love about it is how it's cross-generational in the fire service.
Absolutely.
We have folks that are retired and on their second career, and then we also have folks that are listening in as well. So the call to action for this week is, what would you do if this happened in your community? Are you prepared? And do you agree with Daryl, this is the thing to do, is to train? Or do you think something else is a higher priority? But regardless, you better have a plan, right? That pre-incident planning is important. So normally we have the guests roll out with a tagline. I don't know that you know what that is. Do you know how the ending goes, Daryl? Nope, I didn't think so. So we'll have somebody else do it. But we used to do what's called a turnout drill. So they would pick a number, and we would ask the questions. Does anybody have those questions handy and can do it real quick? I think Matt usually has them up the fastest.
I might, and I do.
Okay.
Pick a number 1 through 50. 1 through 50.
32.
Number 32. What's your go-to karaoke song at your favorite karaoke bar? What would you
I want to see Deral sing.
I don't know. I'm old school country. I like a little Conway Twitty, something like some tight fitting jeans.
There we go.
Lay me
There
down.
you go, tight fitting jeans. Oh Lord.
Yeah, slow
Nice.
hands.
All right, pick another one. Pick another number.
26.
26. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
I know the answer to that. Yeah, come on.
And a shout out,
That's
Fire
amazing.
Department Coffee. They're my go-to.
He said, I'll send you my address, send it to the house.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
I'll give them a shout out because they looked after us during Helene. I hadn't had coffee in a week, and they actually hiked up a mountain to bring us some coffee and snacks and T-shirts, and super guys. Appreciate them, and now that's all the coffee I drink.
Heck yeah.
I love it. I didn't know
Those
they had
guys
done
are
that.
amazing. Yeah, those guys are awesome.
Have you
one more.
seen their fire truck? Have you seen their fire truck? They give out coffee and snacks on one side, wash your clothes on the other. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Unbelievable.
But it's one of them. It's first off, it's a Rosenbauer and it's a European looking thing, so they lose cool points with that. But either way, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but it might as well be. It might as well be a coffee truck because I mean, it is not going to be a fire truck.
This is true. All right, let's just do one more. Let's do one
All
more.
right,
What you got?
one more number.
14.
One more number.
What was or is your dream job?
What I'm doing now, working with State Fire Marshal's office. Love it.
All right.
Best job I've ever had.
Yeah, people call them God. People call them God. Let's call it like it is.
Nah.
Yeah, doing God's work, and you're awesome for it. That was a great story. That was a great interview, man. I'm sure we could sit here and talk a couple more hours about that fire and the intricacies of it, but you definitely hit some very valid, awesome points for a lot of guys and girls that listen to our podcast, and it might make them think about some out of the box type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to training and also after action report stuff, and what you can learn from these incidents. Not just in your area,
everywhere.
But like I said, I listened to that Sofa Superstore for a couple hours, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Then I'm thinking about what buildings are in my first in that could happen.
That's right,
and it only makes you better, So just step outside the realm of your own jurisdiction and learn. That's the best we can do because it's going to happen, right, Chief? Yeah. I mean, we can't just sit here and say it's not going to happen.
No, because at some point in your career, something's going to happen outside the box, outside of your comfort zone. Yeah. I'm telling you, if you're just getting started, if it's never happened, you're mighty fortunate. You need to retire, but something's going to happen that you're not prepared for. It's coming.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
Well, thanks for being with us.
Not a problem.
Thank you for coming on, and I hate that it took this long. We started talking about this probably at Safer. I think is when I mentioned it to it. So last August, it took almost a year.
That's probably about right.
To do it. I said the podcast. He said, "Where are you going in such a hurry?" I said, "I'm going to record." That's when we interviewed Sam and Civic and everything else. And I said, "I'm getting you on." And he's like, "All right, you know how to find me." And so we've been trying, and it's not a we. I've been trying to fit it in, and I appreciate Deral you coming on. So
yeah, these types of friends coming on with us is very valuable, not just to us as a podcast, but this is what we're trying to do is just continue these conversations.
That's right.
That's our big thing, and that's what you're doing. That's what you did for us. So
it's good, to talk about it 22, 23 years, since. I mean, it's still relevant today.
Still relevant. Yep.
It's still happening. It's still being produced. Those types of places don't change. Matt, you want to send us out?
Roll it, Gigi.
Roll it, Gigi.
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out thecoolfireman.com for more. Thanks!